We'll jump right into this. Like I said, we've been talking about a fatherless generation. Let me ask you first, how important is fatherhood to you?
It's it's really it's one of the most important things. I put it right up at the top, right up there with God, really, who is really kind of the ultimate father figure, if you will. So, I think it's one of the most important things that there is, and I think it's huge.
What's good, Chris? This is Ro Graves. Again, thanks for joining us, man. If you could, can you share a little bit about yourself, like your childhood? I don't know if you were raised by both parents. Was your father involved in your life? Can you share a little bit about that?
I saw my father, that I can recall, I saw my father one time. That was in a casket.
Wow.
He died when I was 4 years old. So that's the last I remember of him. I was raised by my mother and my grandfather in a very small town. And I was born in the city, raised in a really small town in a kind of secluded environment. And that's about it. So no, I didn't have my dad growing up.
Wow.
So having fathered children, how did you learn how to be a father?
Well, you just kind of, I had my first son when I was 19. So, I had no idea what I was doing, just kind of doing what seemed right to me at the time, which is a trap that a lot of people, deal with. To be honest, I had ideas from, rap music, you get it wherever you can get it,
right.
When you don't have your dad. Now, in more recent years, I've been saved for the past 7 years, and since then I've really been in church more, in Bible study more, been in my Bible more, and as recently as a year ago, I testified that I believe the Lord has actually got me back up to speed to where I should have been had I had my father. But, that took me 39 years, something that should have took, half the time.
Wow. So let me ask you this. So you said you lost your father at 4 years old. Explain that experience, like growing up with without a father. Like, how did that impact your life? You know what I mean? Like, were there other male figures around? Because as we see, a lot of the statistics show that when the father's not at home, these statistics show that, they have a higher chance of incarceration, higher crime rates. Like, how did you avoid all that? Did you have positive male role models? You know what I mean? Like, how was that experience growing up without a father, and how did you overcome that?
Wow, that's such a huge question. I could take off talking for 2 hours in response to that question, so you feel free to stop me. But it's hard to know where to start. I had positive role model. Some positive. My grandfather was a very positive role model. He was born in 1914, so
oh wow.
I appreciate. You know what I'm saying? He would be 100 this year if he was alive, but. And as I get older, I really appreciate the things I got from him. But yet and still, I want to be clear about this. There is no substitute for having your father.
Yeah.
If you don't have him, you do the best that you can. Or, if you're someone raising a child like that, you do the best that you can in this situation. But I feel, and, some people get mad at me for saying this. I feel the black community has really bought into a lie that, you can just do this or do that. And, no, that's not true. You do the best that you can in a situation, but there's absolutely no substitute for being a father, for having a father. I grew up in, I'm really here by the grace of God because I grew up in the 90s, my late 80s and early 90s. Again, I told you I was raised in a town with like 50 people in it. So, and at some point I was kind of irritated at my mother, like, why would you take me out there to live out there, which was the town that she was from. But, I thank God that I did grow up out there because, I learned values like from my grandfather. I learned to work hard. My cousins that grew up in the city, some were murdered. Most of them, they did federal time. So,
Wow.
Had I been with them, I would, I have no question in my mind, I would have been right with them.
Hey, Chris, you mentioned, obviously not growing up without a father and stuff. As you look back and you reflect on that in that time period, and as a man now, what are some things that you feel like you missed from your father that you wanted to get that you never got, that you try to impart to your children today?
Wow, I mean, that's a huge question. I mean, I'm a very knowledge-based person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've recently got into like some personality test indicators and things like that. So like,
Yeah.
I'm a very data, information-driven person.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I would say the number one thing is knowledge. I mean, and the Bible says, people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
That's right.
And so, I mean, my dad, he was a smart guy. You know, he had an abundance of knowledge. He had a lot of businesses. He had so much to give me that I didn't get to get.
Wow.
And so the number one thing is just knowledge. And then the second thing I would say is I would call it a spirit of control. This generation is out of control.
Mm.
You know, these kids, I'm telling you can like or dislike what I'm saying. You look at half of these kids today, half of them are demon possessed because of what they're taking into their eyes, what they're taking into their ears. The Father is the spiritual leader. You can say whatever you want.
Right.
You don't need a man. You can say whatever you want. A father is a spiritual leader. If the spiritual leader is not there, then that's a vulnerable situation. So I'm going to say, I lacked a spirit of control because you get that. The Bible says we're seen and read of all men. You can spot people who are under control or not. Mm-hmm. And the majority, and so I was out of control. I played football, and that was one of the only things that really gave me true discipline. Because I wanted to do it, so I went through a lot of things I didn't want to go through. And so I would say that I not having my dad, it gave me a lack of discipline that would have been. So I would say knowledge and discipline were two huge things that I felt that I missed out on.
Awesome. I'm listening to you, and you said you had your first child at 19. So what made you stay? Because we got a lot of 19-year-olds out there who get someone pregnant, but then walk away from that situation. What made you want to be present in your children's lives?
Well, first of all, I wasn't as present as I should have been because, I went to school, and this is I have a regret about this. I went to school out of town, and so I was away from him for a fair amount. I mean, I was still there a lot, but I did miss out on his life a fair amount in his early years, due to being away in school. But something inside me knew that it was something that I needed. I graduated from law school. And it was not because, majority of people, I want to be a lawyer, they see it on TV or, they think it's a cool lifestyle. That wasn't the reason I went. I knew that there was something missing that I needed. And, but to get back to your question, my advice to 19-year-olds is, it's something that, you really need God. I mean, it was something I needed. I knew I had a lack of focus, which relates back to that lack of discipline.
Yeah.
If you gave me a sheet of paper with small print on it, I knew I couldn't read through it. I would read 3 lines and then I would be distracted. And I knew that was I knew that wasn't the state I wanted to be in. So I kind of thought that through law school, which helped me with a lot of focus, and it gave me more discipline in my life. But I think your question was advice to 19-year-olds that have a kid is, people really need to understand the definition of being a man, and they need to understand the definition of love. These things are misunderstood. There's so much information out there, particularly in the black community, about what these things mean. Love is doing what you don't want to do. It's not how I feel about you, or I'm going to sing a song for you. It's I'm willing to do for you what I don't want to do. If it's cold outside and we have one coat, I'm going to give you the coat, and I'm willing to be cold. That's the type of thing love is about. Being a man is not, and I don't want to digress too far, but much of what's being a man is affiliated with testosterone. And,
right.
And we as black men, we have a lot of testosterone. We're athletic.
Right.
I read a book called The Samson Syndrome, which I think we tend to have that. We feel kind of invincible. And that stuff is not really, it's not that much related to being a man, as nearly as much as we think. Being a man is, it's doing the little things. It's the things that you don't necessarily want to do. Be there for your kid, which seems like a cliche. But, like the other day, my buddy of mine I hadn't talked to for a while, he's like, what have you been up to? I'm like, working, watching the kids, the grocery store. And then I said man stuff, and then I laughed. But, that's what it's really being about. You have to, you're the spiritual leader. You bring a child into this world, you are responsible for that child. Especially as a man, you are the spiritual leader for that child.
Right,
so
right.
You have a lifetime responsibility to watch over that child spiritually. If I have, and I mean, people disagree with me on this, if my kids grow up and go out doing something happens to them, I take responsibility.
Right.
People.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, I hate to cut you off, but we got more coming up. Stay right there. What is a real man? Right here on Talktainment with Chris Harris. More coming soon.